I want to talk about something about brown representation, or like Asian or like Southeast representation in Toronto. Toronto, what the fuck? Southeast Asian representation in Hollywood. There you go. For a guy who has English as his first language, I can't really speak it that well. Tend to stutter. Tend to stutter all the time. It's annoying as hell. Anyways, and growing up, and even to this day, I actually don't really give a shit about like Southeast Asian representation in Hollywood. Like I always viewed Hollywood as a weird place. I think of it as like the cesspool of like really weird virtue signaling, child pedophilia, like child abuse, especially when it comes to like a lot of these actors and actresses. Like it's this whole thing where you already know that like child actors, in Disney, who are pressured to be, really famous pop stars, TV shows and stuff like that, trying to be like really these young celebrities who kind of grew up in this world, usually get corrupted and they end up being like off the rails like later down in life. Obviously one of them is Miley Cyrus, who's gone off the rails. I think she's good now, or Demi Lovato, who's kind of gone off the rails and back on. Or I think the most famous example and the worst one I've seen, in my opinion, is Amanda Bynes. And like someone who's known to be this very smiley person, very innocent looking, very normal individual, comes out years later just full of issues. And it's just not, it's borderline, in my opinion, illegal what they do to these child actors. And in terms of the child pedophilia, there's things like Harvey Weinstein, but I don't really know that story too well. But the one thing I do know is this whole thing about Nickelodeon, specifically allegedly, for the lawyers, allegedly Dan Schneider is involved in some sort of pedophilic action. Now, for those who don't know who Dan Schneider is, he is actually very famous for directing and creating one of the many shows on Nickelodeon that were really great hits, namely iCarly, Drake and Josh, I believe Victorious. And what actually came out of it was that there was a lot of allegations towards Dan Schneider as being a child pedophile. There was like an audio clip, I believe, of one of the actresses, not actresses, like one of the child attendees that went to one of these things. And then Dan Schneider was like, okay, hey, look, we're able to accept all the candidates that come in if we interview them in a pool party. Which is kind of weird. Like why would a grown guy ask to hang out with a bunch of 8-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 10-year-olds in a pool party? That's just weird. And then there's also this alleged allegation as well that he input a lot of his foot fetishes into a lot of the skits. Like there's a scene in Victorious where she would Tori Vega would grab the she would shoot an arrow with her foot and shoot it over, or a scene in iCarly where I think it's Sam and Carly would paint happy faces on their feet, and Nickelodeon I think temporarily changed their logo to a giant foot, which was kind of weird. So that was kind of this whole allegation towards Jan Schneider having this foot fetish. But yeah, it's a weird place to do that. So it's weird on one side, you have this virtue signaling, basically telling everyone how they should act and how progressive they are and how for human rights they are. But then on the other side, you have things like child pedophilia, abuse of child actors, just kind of goes under the table. I mean, Janet McCurdy, I don't really know how to say her name. The actress from iCarly who plays Sam, kind of just went out of it, right? She's like, I'm never gonna act. I'm gonna be a director. I'm gonna do my own thing. Because she suffered just eating disorders, and just the way that they treated her, through that time was unhealthy. So for me, it's I don't really based on that knowledge, I don't really care about Southeast Asian representation in Hollywood. It's just too much, man. Just too much. And the weird thing as well is that if you have certain beliefs, especially political, religious, or traditional beliefs that don't align with kind of the progressiveness of Hollywood, or the institution of progressiveness of Hollywood, you tend to get ostracized. But yeah, I mean, for me, what I really care about in terms of kind of representation, diversity is representation in terms of income earners. And the good thing about what that is because it kind of steps away from that. It shows that, number one, like if you come over from like say like Southeast Asia, say India, Singapore, or the Philippines, to here it means that you've either worked your ass off to do this, which is very good for you. Number two, you've come from a good family and good education, which is why you're able to come over here. And number three, you just come in with a boatload of money and kill it here, right? But the good thing about what I'm going to read out is that Southeast, like in my opinion, like the Southeast Asian community in terms of top income like performers already included. The list goes as follows because I couldn't find the Canadian kind of statistics, so I end up finding the US stats, which I don't think should be too different from the Canadian statistics. I actually just got these off Wikipedia, so who knows how accurate they could be. I'm just a lazy bastard that just doesn't want to do any research on the Canadian market. But here's the list in terms of the top income earners. So number one are Jewish Americans, which is $135,000 on average a year. Next is Indian Americans. There you go, my people, $126,705 on average. Third is Taiwanese Americans with $102,405. Australian Americans for $100,856. And finally, Filipino Americans, my other people, my other side, for $100,273. That's actually really good. Like, this is what I care about, not necessarily, representation in Hollywood or film, but representation in terms of income potential. And it just goes to show you that if they can make it, like, if they can make this much money, then I can do it too. There's no ceiling at that point for me. So it's not that I care about this actor, being Filipino or Indian, on the big screen. It's about, for me, in my opinion, this is what I care about, is about being those top earners. Saying, okay, I can, make it here. I can, be a nurse, a doctor, or a lawyer, and be hella successful. The numbers say for themselves.